obviously the win streak gets snapped here, but what did you think of that finish that you guys had, even though it didn't end up with the win that you guys wanted?
I think that last stretch that we had, probably 8 minutes or whatever, maybe a little less than, was our identity, of how we want to play defensively. I think that's what got us back into the game. It gave us a chance, fighting, being scrappy, being slightly reckless, as coach likes to use. That's the identity that we got to have early on in the game. We were kind of letting them get what they wanted. They were feeling comfortable, but we got to have that attack mentality. We can't feel themselves throughout the game. We got to come out and be the aggressors defensively and offensively. And I thought as the game went along, we got better offensively, managing their physicality and toughness. But our defense, had a late stand, but we need that earlier in the game.
You mentioned a little bit, obviously, close to 80 points in the paint for Detroit and a lot of points off the turnovers for sure. Can you just kind of talk about what Detroit was doing maybe in that first half that really got you back?
I mean, they're a paint team, that's where they live. They attack the paint. They're aggressive getting to the paint. They attack the paint to play inside out. I thought we just didn't make a strong enough stand early in the game collectively. They were getting whatever they want. They were getting down there. They're finishing, getting fouls and ones, whatever it was. They were aggressive offensively, and we were kind of on our heels throughout the course of the game until late in the fourth.
70 points in the paint for Detroit, and then the points off the turnovers. Can you just kind of talk about what Detroit did to start the game that kind of got you guys a little off?
They were physical, and they made a point to get in the paint, and create from there. Next time we have to do a better thing of just getting in the paint and trying to stop them. Trying to have all guys in the paint and just helping one another. Just like we did that fourth quarter when we made that push, even in the second quarter when we made a push. Just working together defensively.
Is there something to take away from a finale like that, where you're down 22 points, you get back to about 4 or 3 points?
Yeah.
Is there something to take away from that?
Yeah, I mean, we know what we can do. We just got to keep building on that. And they're the number one team in the East for a reason. They're physical. The way they playing together, they play fast. They do a lot, and that's where we want to get. So we got to keep striving for it and just keep getting better.
And I know it's a loss, but you have one of your best offensive games of the year. Can you just kind of talk about just feeling comfortable in the game tonight?
Yeah, definitely. I felt good on the offensive end. I feel like my teammates did a great job of just getting me good shots. Some easy buckets to, get going. Got to the free throw line early. I feel like that helped me out too.
A couple of stats that kind of stood out from this loss was the points in the paint allowed and the points off the turnovers as well. Detroit started off with that physicality. Can you just kind of talk about what led to that, especially in that start?
What led to
the kind of the physicality? Like, how did you guys sort of respond and make it feel a little off towards the start there?
I don't think it was the physicality. I think we just had to adjust that they're, aggressive paint touch team. They're trying to get in the paint, and we've been playing teams that are trying to shoot threes, and so it was definitely a different feel to start the game. But once we got settled in, you seen we came back in the second half.
Bam, you guys for years had that mantra, of hardest working, most physical, all that kind of stuff. Some people thought you got away from it only because of the scoring and the high pace this year. But in some of the toughest times when it's come to opposing offensive rebounds, losing the battle on the boards, is there a concern that this team has lost maybe some of that edge or just needs to regain some of that toughness, like when you see the way the Pistons played against you tonight? In other words, does there need to be maybe a bit of a balance there when you look at the points they had in the paint today?
Everything needs balance. And I feel like we just how many offensive rebounds did they have? All right. We lost by what? Five rebounds?
Mm-hmm.
So
76 paint points.
Yeah. Like I said, we just had to adjust to that part.
Mm-hmm.
We've been used to playing teams that are shooting more threes, and this team comes in and they're trying to get in the paint. They're trying to get in the paint. But like I said, once we settled in and we had our first half skirmish, the second half was much better.
You teamed up with Duncan to produce a lot of points together during his time here. What was it like to be on the other side and be part of a defense trying to defend him?
What do you have, 18? Duncan had a good night tonight. I feel like we let him off the hook a lot on the defensive end. But, we got to see him again. So, I feel like we'll bounce back.
You kind of mentioned about Wiggins kind of being the quietest in the room, and obviously after a night like he had tonight where he wasn't quiet at all, just can you talk about the fit he is on this team and how comfortable he is right now?
Man, y'all can see it. It's been a couple games where he's floated under the radar, but doing the little things, and then he has this outbreak game today where, you see his ceiling, you see what he can be, and I hate that it feels like a wasted effort, but it's good to have him back out there. It's good to see him like getting in the rhythm, getting in the flow, because he's not going to do anything but help this team.
Detroit's not the first team to go matchup hunting for a long time during this game, but I'm curious as to, there's only so much you can do if they're not going to call you up, but how much of a weapon did he show he can be, Davion, with his ability just to not get screened or to fight through those screens when they're trying to switch the matchups?
Man, I love Davion, man. He's one of those players, dog, like you hate playing against because he's a pest. And he's hard to screen. You get offensive foul trying to screen him. So I'm glad he's on my side now. But he just plays the right way, man. He's going to make the multiple efforts. He's going to, like you've seen in that fourth quarter, he was, the slightly reckless guy, as Spo likes to put it, where he's in the gaps. Somebody swings, he's going trap. He's providing that energy for us. And like I said, he just plays the right way.
Bam, what was the difference for you guys in the fourth quarter, specifically on defense, and how you guys kind of responded to the Cade actions that were giving you trouble throughout the game beforehand?
Davion. That's really what it was. It was Davion making plays and, getting us activated so we can get in transition, we can run for easy layups. And, he definitely impacted trying to win today.
Tyler, one of the few things that kind of stand out is those points in the paint allowed to Detroit and those points off those turnovers. Can you just kind of talk about the physicality that Detroit kind of started off with that got you guys a little off?
Yeah, they're a very physical team. They've been physical all year. And they definitely was physical, and they used that, against us.
Just kind of talking about that finale, especially when you guys are down 22, you cut it a little closer. Is there something to take away from that? What were you guys kind of clicking into at the end?
Just getting stops defensively, getting stops, turning them into offense. Our stops lead to transition buckets, and that's how we play.
Can I talk? Obviously an uneven start for you, and then you came around. Do you still feel you're working up to speed, and sort of like how far do you think, or how close do you think you are to being who you want to be this season, coming off of the injury and the time off?
Yeah, I'm still working, but I work every day at my craft, so tomorrow maybe, see what happens.
Tyler, just what were you seeing out of the battle between Davion and Cade for the duration of the game?
Say it again, sorry.
The battle between Davion and Cade, especially what Davion was doing late to kind of spur that comeback.
Yeah, he's when he's on the ball like that, obviously turning guys, forcing guys into tough shots, and then being off balance when they're dribbling, and then also off the ball. When guys may beat someone off the dribble, he's always there to be disruptive. That's kind of what we talked about all year, is just being slightly reckless and in our attack defensively, trying to be disruptive, get steals, get deflections. I feel like it all starts with Davion being like the head of the snake on the ball.
Tyler, obviously Wiggins was really great tonight, and Bam in the past said he was like the quietest guy in the room, but he really shows off that play at the court. Can you just kind of talk about just what you've seen from him?
Yeah, I mean, when Wiggins is getting downhill, we know how effective and aggressive he can be getting downhill, and also just getting out in transition. Again, our defense, sparks our transition. When we get our guys running in transition, they're hard to stop.
After spending years knowing what Duncan can do to double teams, there was one play early when you guys doubled. Boom, Duncan was wide open. What's it like to be on the other side of the Duncan Robinson experience?
Yeah, I mean, I loved, obviously, my time with Duncan, being able to play alongside him. One of the best shooters, if not the best shooter, I've ever played against or shot with. So obviously we know how dangerous and capable he is. So, it's tough because, when he gets going, it just opens up everything else for everyone else.
Coach, Detroit had 76 points in the paint and 28 points off of those turnovers. Can you just kind of talk about those areas and what Detroit was doing, and even that final battle?
Yeah, I mean, you do have to credit Detroit. They do play with the physicality and quickness. They play the passing lanes. Those can be deflating plays when it ends up being a pick six. And then they're relentless on their drives. Defensively for us, it just felt like we were on our heels and passive, for the majority of the night. There was a segment with our second unit where they really kind of changed the feeling of the game for 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And then those last 5 minutes, not necessarily, because they were up or relaxed, you could just see us, scrambling, really making plays and doing things with incredible urgency. But that's our identity. That has to be, and it has been, quite frequently, who we've been. But that wasn't enough, tonight. Offensively, I thought we adjusted to their physicality as the game went on. But defensively, it just took us a long time to be aggressive. And that might not have done enough to secure the win, but you just want to see, more minutes of the game where you're playing closer to your identity.
Obviously, when some guys were starting off a little slow, Wiggins really was kind of that steady presence throughout the game. Can you just kind of talk about just the fit of him tonight?
Yeah, I think he made the adjustment, to how aggressive they were. It helped he was knocking down shots, but he was aggressive in transition on his catch-and-go drives. He was assertive, really finishing with force at the rim, which you need to do, or, make the appropriate plays. Like I said, offensively, I think we adjusted as the game went on after the first quarter, with their physicality, other than the turnovers, taking care of the ball and making those reads versus their denials. We didn't do a good job with that. But Detroit, showed us, why they've been number one in the East so far. We've been an up-and-coming team, but that was a different level for, big parts of the game.
Erik, is the last 8 minutes just yet another reminder that nothing's ever done in this league anymore? Like 22 became 2 like nothing, it seems.
Yeah. We've been on both ends of that. And that's, to my point, is, that type of aggressiveness defensively, that's been us when we're at our best, making plays and, at times, you're scrambling so hard that, you get burned on a couple things, but that's been our identity. And, us scrambling and being way more aggressive was protecting the paint way more than us being passive. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy there. The more aggressive we are, you feel like maybe you're going to give up more things at the rim or more at the paint, but that hasn't been the case, with us. But I think their force on both ends of the court kind of flattened us out, that aggressiveness. And sometimes you just need to see what it is, to be able to take that next step, and we saw what it was. We felt what it was. We felt it when we weren't being physical or being aggressive defensively.
Nico's a player who confidence plays a lot into his game. He just seemed off.
I don't buy into that. I think
Okay.
that is a narrative that's out there. Look, he needs to get in better rhythm. He needs to put in some work. He'll be just fine. But the more you put into it, and he was sidetracked a little bit with his injury. But it's the attention to detail, it's the work ethic every single day. That has to be, consistent, and he'll get there. He'll get in better rhythm. It's not easy to jump into a game that's as intense as this and as physical and where you have to be in rhythm, and he hasn't really fully practiced. He did, what we did yesterday, but that was a lot of, detail work. He just needs to get into the work, get into the process, and he'll be fine.
There's a lot of matchup manipulation happening from Detroit, stemming from what Davion was doing on Cade. And then there's what were you getting out of Davion during that comeback? And then what did Cade do on those last two possessions to kind of absorb the pressure?
He is, it's impressive the jumps that he's been making. He plays at his pace where you can't really speed him up. I know we forced him into 8 turnovers, but it looks like he's not going full speed, and then he's blowing by, good defenders. He's just very shifty. He knows how to use his speed and change speeds. He's big. So he if he gets a shoulder on you, he's getting to the spot where he wants to get to. And that's why our aggressiveness, has to overcome, the skill set and the talent and size that he has.